What's up, boopers? Welcome to my updated gearing guide for May 2017. This video is going to cover all of BDO's fantastical gear and where to find it, and a few pointers on itemization, so let's get started. Firstly, Black Desert Online's gear is by default not bind on equip or bind on pickup mostly. It can be traded or sold at all times, so it's easy to gear up alt or sell gear you outgrow. This is important because getting best in slot gear will take a while, so you'll want to invest in not so best in slot gear in the meantime. The difference in gear in BDO is simply what stats you get from it, so you'll want to decide what stats you feel your class needs the most. Let's start by taking a look at the stat system in Black Desert Online. While in game, if you press P to open your character tab, you'll notice on the left of your character tab you see attack speed, cast speed, movement speed, crit rate, luck, and some life skills. And on the right side you've got your resistances, your HP, and your stamina. When you decide what gear you want to go for, keep in mind that these stats all have caps, and you want to avoid going over the caps, otherwise you'll waste the stat. For example, having +6 to crit will only give you the benefits of +5. In addition, not mentioned in your sheet are two important hidden stats, accuracy and evasion. Accuracy affects your ability to hit targets, particularly important against monsters higher level than you, or players or high evasion targets. And evasion will give you a chance to avoid attacks. New players, do not underestimate the value of accuracy. It will increase your DPS pretty significantly if you make sure to always have at least one piece of gear granting you some. Aside from these stats though, you've got AP and DP. AP stands for attack power and makes you hurt more, and DP for defense power and protects your booty. So with that in mind, you'll want to decide what gear you want based on the class you are playing. When you're starting out, I recommend you go for lower tier green gear such as Urea, Kriya, Rosa, etc. for weapons, as these are extremely cheap to enchant and obtain, and strong enough to handle most early content. For armor, I'd recommend going with Grunil, as this is generally the one-size-fits-all armor and is easy to use on different alts without any stats becoming useless on certain classes, like with some of the other beginning armor. The armor sets generally have set bonuses, so pay attention to what you feel your class needs if you don't want Grunil, and also pay attention to how many sockets armor sets have, but we'll go over socketing and enchanting in part 2. And once you hit 56, you'll get an awakened weapon for free that can be pricey to enchant. Now after you've got some decent lower tier gear, your goal in BDO PvE is essentially to use that low tier stuff to try and get your best in slot boss pieces. There are mid tier items such as Laverto weapon that you can grab, but I personally recommend skipping over them and just investing into getting the best stuff. BDO has also recently added some quest items that you get around level 50 for offhand and armor slots that are very well statted and require no enchanting, and you can upgrade them into stronger versions as you get to level 55. So if you're starting out and leveling an alt and you don't have gear, these quest items are not bad ideas to use and are given out free from your Black Spirit. But let's jump into the best in slot stuff. For main hand, we've got the Kazarka weapon, Nuver or Kutum for offhand depending on what stats you want, Dande Awakening. Then for boss armor we've got Hebatet's tree armor, Beg's gloves, Muskan's shoes, Gias's helmet, and we've also got the Rednose armor as an alternative, and shortly with new Camasil content we will have the new Griffin helmet from the Camasil region. Getting these items is essentially the endgame of BDO PvE at the moment. For most players, everything you do is either grind XP or grind silver to buy and upgrade these items, or grind to get the items themselves. So let's go over ways you can obtain them. Number 1, the auction house. Players sell these items from time to time, generally for around 100 million silver with some exceptions. You can place pre-orders of 150 million plus to have it auto-purchased for you while you're AFK and not near the auction house, or try and snag one using the notifications and keeping an alt parked near the auctioneer, then swapping to the alt to bid on the item anytime you see one pop up. Number 2, the night vendor. Every night in-game from 10 PM to 7 AM in-game, a vendor becomes available in all major cities in these specific locations. When you interact with him, you can spend 50 energy for him to show you a random item. This item can be any of the endgame gear pieces, including the accessories, even though it's a low chance. And the cost he'll sell it to you can range anywhere between 75% of its market value to 250%. Not exactly sure if those are the exact numbers, but yeah, it's a bit of a gamble. The best way to game this guy is to make sure you have all your character slots filled out with alts so they are generating energy, and then log your alts out near the night vendor in a town where you keep all of your silver. That way, once your alts are full of energy, you can swap to them during the night to use their energy to check his inventory, and if he has something you want, you can purchase it using the silver in your bank of that city. If you do mess up with the silver location, a recent option allows you to hold an item that the black market merchant shows you in his inventory for 15 minutes. Number 3. Boss Scrolls. Players can receive daily boss scrolls from their black spirit to kill Giath, Rednose, and Beg, and you can receive weekly scrolls to kill Muskan and Heve. These quests require you to kill some monsters for the scroll until you obtain knowledge on the boss belonging to the scroll, at which point the quest is instant turn-in. So I recommend trying to get knowledge on the boss you want to farm to save yourself some tedious lobby mob killing. These quests also offer an alternative reward. You can take an awakened scroll to kill the harder versions of the bosses for a better chance to get the loot, but they're significantly harder to take down, and I recommend a group for them. If you share scrolls with other players, you all get your own separate loot each time you kill a boss together. So a popular method for farming boss scrolls is to collect 5 or so scrolls for the week, then search for a party of players that have 5 or so scrolls themselves, then group up with them to knock out all the scrolls together and share loot. In addition to these quests though, the boss scrolls can also be farmed manually from different mobs around the world, though the drop rate is pretty low. Farming the tree spirits in Treant Forest in southwest Calpheon will drop tree scrolls. Farming Mancha goblins, fat catfishmen, or Sawnil commanders and elders can give Giath scrolls. Farming elites in the abandoned monastery or Calpheon shrine, or killing the priestesses and warriors in the Serendia shrine drop Muskan scrolls. Farming elites at Rutums, Mains, or bandits can give Beg scrolls. And farming Kron Castle, giants, Sausons, or elites at the iron mines will give Rednose scrolls. There's actually quite a lot more places in the game where you can farm to get these boss scrolls if you are specifically targeting a piece of boss armor that you really want, but it's still very RNG based and time consuming and no guarantee the item will drop. Number 4. Killing the bosses themselves as field bosses and world bosses. By far the most popular method of obtaining boss loot, periodically the bosses that drop these items will spawn out in the world. If you attend a boss kill and do enough damage, they will drop you some loot. Sometimes a Laverto, sometimes some junk, sometimes the good stuff. Even if they don't drop the good stuff, they'll always drop enchanting materials or money, so there's no reason to not have an alt you can use around level 50 who just farms these bosses all day. I recommend all players make a wizard and level it to level 50, ideally 56, and keep it parked around the world boss spawns so that anytime one pops up, you can hop on your ult to kill them, to go back to what you were doing. This is particularly useful if you are leveling a new character in the Olvia channels, because one thing to note about the Olvia channels is world bosses cannot spawn in them. I also don't recommend farming world bosses on your main because they desync a lot and can one-shot you seemingly randomly, causing you to lose XP and valuable crystals. And the reason I suggest a wizard is because you can just spam multiple magic arrows to easily get boss credit, and a wizard is self-sustaining with self-heals and self-mana regeneration, so you don't need to carry potions. Now the ideal way to hunt these bosses is to make use of the public Discord channels. For NA, there is a channel called NA World Bosses. The Discord is well maintained by players and bots and tracks the spawn of the bosses. Simply join the Discord server with sound notifications enabled, and anytime a boss spawns, you'll get a message and can use the other player's input to track what channels bosses are dead on or else still alive in. It's great for hunting bosses even while you're playing other games or leveling in the Olvia channel, and I want to give a special thanks to that community for making everyone's boss hunting life easier. I'll add a link to the Discord server in the description. Just be sure to read the rules and follow them. The server has many details on the locations of all the boss spawns, as well as their timers and windows. Number 5. Tokens. Killing Karanda for Dande, Nuver or Kutum for their offhands, or Kazarka for his main hand, these world bosses all drop tokens called latent auras. and once you collect 100 of a type of latent aura, it can be traded for its respective weapon chest. Kazarka can be turned in here, Karanda aura can be turned in here for a Dande, Nuver can be exchanged here for a Nuver offhand, and Kutum exchanged at this location. These trades are to prevent you from getting horribly unlucky, an anti-RNG mechanic, so that once you kill the boss enough times and you haven't gotten the drop, you'll get the weapon guaranteed. For this reason, I believe it is unwise to dump silver into these weapons using methods 1 and 2, because if you are patient enough, you can get these weapons guaranteed eventually. Do note though that these quests are reportedly only completable once per account, though I haven't confirmed this myself. Number 6, lastly, events are not a bad way to get gear. Recently added to the game are the Shakatu seals. These are obtained slowly over time through events and login rewards, and once you collect a certain amount, they can be traded for the high-end stuff, including some pre-enchanted accessories. Additionally, there is always random events going on that'll grant loot boxes that have a chance to give the goodies as well. And one last thing I want to note about boss armor is that it focuses on offense somewhat. And in EU meta, as well as some NA players now, some players opt to go for Rocaba armor instead, which is a pure armor evasion set, which is much easier to enchant and upgrade, and quite viable for people who want to be meat shields and tanky instead of getting this boss armor. Now for accessories. Now these bad boys are all over the place. There are multiple options depending on what stats you want, and many variations from crafting, so let's start with the low tier and freebies. Early tier are the green accessories. They are extremely cheap and easy to buy or obtain, usually making it not so dangerous to try enchanting them and upgrading them. More on enchanting and upgrading in the next video though. Low tier are stuff like Barris, Talus, and yeah, the green stuff. You get them all over the place, and you'll have quite a few by the time you hit level 50 if you're starting fresh. Heck, doing the level 50 Black Spirit quests give you several for free. Then we've got the Jarrett set. This is a set of accessories given out through login rewards and other events. It is extremely good for new players or alts. This set is not enchantable and not amazing, but it's good enough that you don't have to worry about investing anything into the pricey accessories right away. Next to Jarrett are the quest accessories. In several spots in the world, there are repeatable quests that can be spammed to farm tokens that you can trade in for accessories. While these do take some time to farm, the recent removal of the hour cooldown on the quests and the increase in token rewards makes them viable to farm and enchant together, especially if you are farming mobs near the quests anyway. How these tokens work is you just accept the quest from the NPC, kill the mobs nearby, turn in the quest to get some tokens, and then you can exchange the tokens for the accessory or exchange more tokens to upgrade the accessory. Once fully upgraded, you can then take 2 of them and try to enchant them to make them stronger. You can get the dim necklace here from this Elric's NPC by farming Elric's. You can get the other Calpheon necklace here from this goblin in Calpheon. The ring from the abandoned monastery node, but it may have a prerequisite quest that starts from the Calpheon warehouse manager. I'm not sure if that was removed. And then the earrings from the Hex Witch here, which also may have the same Calpheon warehouse manager prerequisite quest. Not 100% sure. Then you also have the Rutum belt you can get the token quest for here. And for the Destroyer belt, you can get it here from Helms. Just simply grind the mobs near the NPC as they request, and within an hour or so you'll have a fully upgraded version of the item. Also note that the Elric necklace and the Destroyer belt have set bonuses when you wear them both. Now the rest of the accessory list is huge. There are crafted ones and all sorts of variations of different stats. Note that all the accessories are obtainable using the auction house, and most of the non-craftable ones also obtainable through the black market vendor, and you can also get a lot of them through events. So rather than go over each accessory individually, here's a map showing the farmable locations of all the accessories. I'll put a link in the description so you can look at it, decide which accessories you want, and work on it. I recommend not going too ham on accessories before having decent armor and weapons though, as these things can be a bitch to farm and enchant. A few things to note as unique ways to obtain these is that 1. When you're farming Ogre Ring, Cecile's Necklace, Centaur Belt, and Crescent Ring, they sometimes drop in a soiled form, a loot box. Opening the soiled loot box gives about a 10% chance of being the real item and a 90% chance of being a destroyed version. Do not throw the destroyed versions away. If you get horribly unlucky, you can trade 100 destroyed versions for a real one. For the fugitive calc and blue whale molar earrings, these earrings are crafted in workshops by your workers once you gather the correct material from hunting whales in the ocean or calcs flying around near the roads using your hunting skill and a hunting musket. For basilisk belt and cadre ring, these items sometimes drop fragments of the item instead. You can combine 3 of each fragment type for the real item, but some fragments are rare. For example, cadre ring has a blue fragment, a red fragment, and an obsidian fragment, the blue being really common. To offset the rarity of these fragment drop rates, you can combine 9 blues to make 1 red and 5 reds to make 1 black. Same numbers for the basilisk belt. This is again another anti-bad RNG failsafe, but don't get your hopes up. That means you're looking at farming 81 of the bad pieces to make a real one, which is quite a lot. Now lastly, for the Tungrad earring and necklace, they only drop in the Akman and Hysteria dungeons. The Tungrad earring dropping in the form of 2 fragments that must be combined in either dungeon, and the necklace only dropping in the Hysteria dungeon. These dungeons are extremely hard and meant for level 60 plus players that are already fully geared in a full group, and the spawn locations of the entrances to the dungeons randomly appear at set locations throughout the Black Desert. Now with all these farmable accessories, don't forget to look at craftable accessories. These craftable accessories are not as super statted as some of the farmable ones, but they offer some alternative stats such as stun resistance and stiffness resistance and knockdown resistance. These resistances are particularly useful when you're going for the 100% resistance caps for PvP or farming certain monsters. For example, the monsters at the Crescent Shrine are known to chain knockdown, and if you're at 100% knockdown resistance, they're much easier to farm. And there's one last item you'll need to equip, and that is your alchemy stone. Yay! Now alchemy stones are a whole different beast altogether, so instead I'll put a link in the description on how to craft your own alchemy stone and upgrade it. New players tend to overlook alchemy stones for a while because they seem tedious and inconvenient, but I recommend you do not do this. Get one and I promise you'll be happy you did. But that's it for my Gearing Up Guide Part 1. In Part 2, we'll be looking at how to enchant, upgrade, and socket all these tasty memey bad boys. And make sure you become super OP so you can smash all the noobs and become the god of Olvia. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments or if you feel I missed any important info, but until next time, I am booping out.